Hi, and welcome to the pilot episode of Blenderclinic. So, what we're trying to do here today is this is us trying out the platform where we take a live Zoom call from Blender user and try to heal what ails them. So any problems you're having with Blender, anything you're struggling to learn or not sure how to go about, we try to there and then sort of take care of it in a one-to-one sort of scenario, and then that's edited and spat out on YouTube. We're not entirely sure how the platform should work and how the format should work. So if you've got any suggestions of what you'd like to see more of, less of, how you'd like it done, things that annoyed you, things that you enjoyed, stick it all in the comments, and do let us know, because we want to make this channel, well, we're making it for you. So we want you to enjoy it and to do the best channel that we possibly can. So yeah, thoughts, feelings, get in there on the comments, let us know, and without any further ado, do enjoy the show. So welcome to the show, Andrew Whitney. I'm saying that right? Yes.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, well, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, and we'll and from there we'll get stuck in.
Sure. So I'm company director of Hot Knife Digital Media. We started in '91 doing, initially it was a 10-minute broadcast animation for Central TV back in the day. And that was on, a 386, I think it was, and DOS and 3DS. Or 3DS Max, whatever it was called in the day.
I think that was about the last time I used 3DS Max, actually.
Well, it was in DOS days, wasn't it?
Yeah, I used it for about a couple of hours and went, no, 3D's really hard.
I think it was in those days. I think it still can be. It's certainly hard with DOS.
Yeah.
When you couldn't flick between your 3D package and, for instance, a paint package.
Definitely.
But I mean, since then we've taken on corporate film, TV advertising, a whole gamut of work. That's like 30 years ago. So I probably should have shaved for this. Now I might have looked 10 years younger.
I mean, come on, buddy. It's lockdown living, man. I mean, yeah, exactly. I have a bouffant. I'm living the dream.
You're lucky.
So basically, you're very experienced, and I can expect you're going to ask me some really tough questions, aren't you?
No, probably not. I mean, it's that switch that we are making. We're kind of running Blender in parallel with Max now. So while the younger lads in the office have picked it up quite quickly and are flying with it, I'm kind of looking at some of it and going, well, where's that in Blender, and where's that in Blender, and how do I do that? Which are kind of quite basic things to do in Max.
I think that's a real, it's a real sticking point for a lot of people coming into Blender. Is even if you know what you're looking for, it can be very hard to find, and sometimes it's just the terminology is different, or that it's a totally different way of doing stuff, which is, it can throw you. So I totally sympathise with that. Whilst I could probably chat to you all day, because it sounds like you've got a fascinating part of the industry and you've been at it for a really long time. Maybe we should actually jump straight into what you'd like me to take a look at, and the chat will probably organically happen from there.
Yeah,
as you know, this is the very first time we've tried Blenderclinic, and so it's going to be a bit messy, and we're going to kind of just find our feet as we go. So are you okay with that?
Yeah, that's absolutely fine.
You mentioned something about Splines and a certain plugin for 3ds Max, didn't you? When we were on Twitter.
Yeah, I mean, basically, if you go create a spline in your viewport, obviously delete the cube or whatever you do.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Sure. Or all. You're confronted with this shape. And you kind of go, so in Max, you create a line, it'll start snapping to the grid, and you just whack around the grid, and you draw your shape. And that just seems the most unintuitive thing to give someone. It isn't centered.
There's a reason it seems like that. It's because it is.
Right.
It's quite cruel how Blender works with splines and stuff. So, I mean, shall I just start doing some stuff as we talk, and you can sort of ask me a few questions about it? So I use splines a lot in my rigging and for various sort of things, but they are an absolute swine to work with. So
Right.
I'm just going to use Shift A and add a Bezier spline, and you get, as you said, you get this very unhelpful shape. The first thing I like to do when I'm working with a spline, tab into Edit Mode, A to select all, hit V and change it to a vector, because suddenly when you use the V control, sorry, it allows you to change the handle types. So by changing it to a vector, we've suddenly got a far more manageable system where I can snap this to the cursor. Oh, I did that the wrong way around. So I'm hitting Shift S, snap cursor to world origin, snap selection to cursor. So I can snap it to different points like that. Obviously, I can turn on snapping here. And this is incremental snapping, so it should snap to the grid. And I can hit E to extrude. So I hit E and escape, and then I'm dragging. And I can start snapping these points. Now, that's all well and good if you want straight curves, but it's a curve. Why would you want it to be straight? That doesn't make sense. So then once I've actually laid out the points, I can hit A again, V, and change them to an automatic spline or whatever. In fact, you can draw like it in this sense as well. You can, you've got this incremental snapping turned on here, or you could snap it to surfaces. So that would also work. So we could, I say that'll work. It probably won't work right now whilst I'm trying to do stuff live. But let's give Blender, let it try. Let's try it and see if it just destroys me. Faces, closest, project onto self. Lots of different options there to be explored. But yeah, I can sort of, it seems to be snapping to these surfaces.
Which I have used for retopping a bit.
You've used spline snapping?
Well, volume snapping, I think it was.
Oh, just so you're just snapping the mesh to it. Yeah, absolutely. It's quite vital. That and a shrink wrap modifier is a brilliant way of retopologizing. But yeah, well, that's a totally different subject. Maybe we can get back to that.
We can get there.
But that's my main tip with splines, is to always set it to vector when you're starting out on the actual thing, and just being aware of and if you need snapping, then the snapping is there. But always being aware of what the different handle types are. So you've also got different curve types. If you are having trouble, just make sure you're on Bezier, because the others behave in somewhat different and less predictable fashions. But the main thing I'd say is if you've got your origin point, so if I just get rid of this for a second, I like to always align my first point to the origin. So the origin and the starting point of your curve are the same thing. That way, if I'm going to snap something to the curve, I can snap this to selection to cursor, and then I can shift select the curve, Control P, follow path, or curve deform, I suppose you could do. But yeah, and that way you're not, if you align your first point and your origin of the spline and then the origin of your object, you're in good shape to continue with curve-based operations. Otherwise, this thing's going to fly off over there somewhere and we're going to get lost and it'll be a bit of a nightmare. So, yeah.
I mean, I was looking at the splines mainly as like a modeling technique where you...
okay.
So just going back, you've got quite a bit of information now on your spline of all these arrows.
Yes, these are the normals. Yeah.
And that's the direction of the spline, I take it.
Yeah. So what you've got is in here, you can actually change how those normals display. So I'm going to change this to automatic, and you'll get a much more detailed sort of view. And it's important to be able to sort of view these normals, because quite often, like if you find your splines running in the wrong direction, you can always switch. So I'm using the key map where space allows you to search. Sure. I think it's F3 if you haven't got it set up that way. Yeah. So I've typed in switch and done switch direction, and now the spline is running a different way. But because of that, our cube has gone off into the wilderness. So if I align.
Oh, so you've already assigned that cube to its path. I missed that.
Oh yeah. Sorry, that was literally just done by select a cube, shift select, and then Control P to follow path.
Oh right. So I thought that was the general parent, is it? So in essence, you're parenting that cube to that spline.
And I've also got it to be deformed by the spline. I did that all a bit quickly. So yeah, it's the main thing to remember when you're setting up splines to do any of that sort of weirdness is to make sure that the origin point and the first point of your spline are in the same place in space, and then for your object's origin points in the same space. And that way you should get quite a predictable behavior. But yeah, it's a tricky old thing.
So you've got 2D splines and 3D splines.
I mean, they're essentially the same thing. So if I add the spline in there, yeah, it's all it is one will constrain it to an axis to the 2D axis, but also I don't think it'll allow filling. So they're very much interchangeable in that regard.
So can you physically not lift if it's a 2D spline? You can physically not lift it up.
That's right.
Okay.
I can move it on the X and Y, but I can't move it on the Z.
Right.
Do you have, by chance, the thing that you sent me over Twitter? What was it called? I'm just going to see if I can bring it up. It was the Boolean Spline 3ds Max.
Boolean, yes. So Max is very good. I think Max came from a CAD company, obviously. So, for instance, if you create a circle and then a rectangle and they're overlapping,
yeah.
How do we Boolean and chop those about?
Now, I don't know that you can actually Boolean splines, but
I'll tell you what, let's start more basic. What have we got when we create a spline? We've got, I'm going to get mine up as well. There seems to be a lack of, I mean, I've got Bezier or circle, but there's no kind of star, rectangle, that kind of stuff. Which, is that in an add-in or?
Yeah, there is an add-on for that. So there's a couple of them actually, and I couldn't direct you exactly to which ones are which, but there was. So we've got add curve extra objects, curve tools. Haven't explored that. Simplify curves. There used to be one called like beautiful curves or something like that. No, that's definitely wrong. But it allows you to add in these really lovely spirals. But I've just gone to my preferences menu, add-ons, search for curves, and we've got these add curve options here.
There's something called
so I'm going to
objects. Yeah. So
we can go in and add curve spirals, and these are quite useful. If you just pull this open, you have there used to be presets for this, but
I'm with you actually.
Yeah, so we can add sort of turns and steps, and if we add the height there, you'll see it spring into actually being a real live curve. So that stuff's quite useful. Useful sort of there are useful add-ons with curves, but they're quite myriad, and I wouldn't be able to go into massive depth about it. What I would say is, with one of the videos you sent, there was creating objects along a curve and manipulating. That's something that I had some thoughts on. Would you like me to jump in on that actually?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Do you have
that was an MCG I wrote, and it took an array of objects and then placed it end to end.
Do you have a link for that video just so I can show the folks at home what we're talking about trying to create?
Yeah, let me get to my channel.
In the meantime, I'm just going to create some objects. I just have to go here. Lovely. Thank you.
Gone into the chat.
Yeah, I'm going to... There we go. So we've got this 3D Max Spline Instancing. Now, as soon as I saw this, I thought to myself, do you know what? I can do that just with a modifier stack.
Right.
But it turns out, when I did just give it a quick look, there's been a bug since Blender 2.8 where it will not allow particles emission from instancing, at least in certain circumstances. So you could go back to Blender 2.79 to do that, but I believe there's a better way, and I'm going to try it and make a prat of myself live. Does that sound feasible?
That's the best way to do it.
Excellent. So I've just created a collection with oh, why's my thing not working? There we go. I'm just going to basically give them all a different material with a different viewport color, so we can see them quite clearly. So I'm just basically making some random objects that we will use to populate our curve. So I can hide that collection now, maybe create a new collection, and I'm going to add my curve. The next thing, oh, actually, just like I suggested, I'm going to change it to a vector. I'm just going to line up my start and end points. That's my start and origin point, sorry. Change it back to automatic, give it a little thing so we can actually, in fact, see it is a curve. And then I'm going to create another object. That object is going to be a plane. And then I'm just going to merge all the points to the center. So we've just basically got a single vertice. Still following?
Yep.
And I'm going to extrude another point out. So now we've got two verts joined by an edge. And I'm going to call this our instancing object. And yeah, so the next thing I'm going to do is add an array. And I'm going to say thick curve and choose our curve. I'm also going to parent this, Control P, to curve deform. And now you can see we've got this very basic thing, and it's re-instancing. So it's basically creating from these two verts and edge a whole lot more. Why is that useful? Basically, we're going to use the points on that instancing object to populate, to sort of create geometry along the curve.
You instanced that two verts, one edge along the spline.
Well, I've created an array modifier and a curve deform over here. So see
right,
that.
I'm with you.
So it's just a very simple array of, so it's just some dots and verts, some verts and edges going along the curve now. And I'm going to try something which I haven't used before, other than literally opening it once. This is the new geometry nodes.
Sure.
Now, I've not used geometry nodes. I have used its predecessor, which was animation nodes, a plugin which, an additional plugin you could get for Blender. This is actually built into Blender now from 2.9 onwards. I'm using 2.93.
Right.
Simply because it gives us, I'm assuming there's more options in there. I don't know what would be missing if we didn't sort of, if we used an earlier version. God, I'm waffling away. I do apologize. Point instancing, that sounds reasonable. Collections, excellent. It's already got it all in here. So I'm just going to plug the geometry. So this is, I'm creating this on our instancing object. I'm creating a geometry nodes node tree, I guess. And all I've done is add a point instance, and I'm going to select collection 1, which is all our objects. And you can see it's instantly actually worked, which is a massive relief. So I'm just going to hide that for a second and go back to our objects because they are massive. And I'm just going to select them all. I'm going to hit S to scale them down. And I'm going to hit Control A to apply scale. Simply because we want all the transforms to be zeroed off, otherwise we're going to run into problems, but hopefully that's made them a little bit smaller. And now we can see we've got this, it's instancing the collection along the curve. The only issue, really, straight off the bat, is that it's using the whole collection. So I'm going to untick that object, there we go, and that's doing quite nicely. But we can also see there's some doubling of objects here. And I think I have a suspicion. Oh, and yeah, as you can see, because
Cool.
the array modifier is fitting the curve rather than being a fixed count where we could dial that in, because it's fitting the curve, it will continue to extend and create more geometry as we need it. But the problem is, with that array, with the thingamajig, we've got these 2 points, and it's basically creating another 2 points with. So every other one has
Yes.
2 vertices.
At it, yeah. It's got a start and an end and a start and an end.
Which is fortunately easily fixed by using this merge thing with the, and you can dial the distance in there, and that's merging those to prevent that from happening. So now there's no doubling,
Right.
and we've got, you know, this fun stuff. I wonder if we could take it further. I can't even say further apparently. I really
That's
should have.
working well, though, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know how stable this was going to be. As I said, I've not used geometry nodes. It actually creates. Oh, that's interesting. It creates a geometry node saying in the stack. Oh, okay, well that's encouraging. I wonder if there's a way. I think I saw something in Blender today about attribute randomization. So let's have a look at that. We've got an attribute randomize. If I plug that there and type scale. Hey, okay. And now we've got randomized scale. And we could, and you've got a bunch of different options there for that. I'm going to leave that on float, but I'm assuming if I turn it to vector, we can do it on a per axis. Yeah, we can do it on a per axis sort of thing. I do apologize. I'm getting a little bit of feedback on my mic. I'm just going to take edge off the volume there. So yeah, okay. And I'm assuming I can do this with, is it just going to be rot? Or is it going to be rotation? Yes, rotation on a vector. Actually, I'm going to change this back to float so we can see this more clearly. Yeah, so okay, now we can randomize rotation. I don't know if you could do that with location to get offset, but that seems fairly. What else would you want this to be able to do? Let's see if we can build any more features in.
We were looking at projecting down to a surface, actually.
Projecting onto a surface. Okay,
yeah.
let's get a surface. So if I scale this up, and actually, what am I doing? Control A, apply scale. Never leave that stuff unapplied if you're doing stuff like this, because it will go wonky. And yeah, so I've got a surface, and we will give it some displacement, just adding a modifier to it. A new texture. Let's make that texture a cloud. Got some lovely wobblies. All right then. And then what I could do is select the curve.
Project that down.
Yeah. But will it work? Will it blend?
Let's find out.
Okay, no, because the operations are actually occurring in a different order, I think.
Right.
I think that's the problem here is, well, that did something. So I think what it is the, oh, that's interesting. It kind of is working.
So it's offset.
But it's offset. So, I mean, maybe I need to snap this back to the center. Snap selection to cursor. Aha!
Right.
So again, this comes down to those origin points not being aligned correctly. And we're going to, will it update properly though? I think this is going to be quite a buggy way of doing things because, oh no, it's actually quite, it's quite happy. The problem you are going to have there though, is we're going to need to subdivide that curve. So maybe the best thing to do is to have two curves. We subdivide the one and then lay it over a second control curve. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Cool. I'm never sure if I'm even speaking English when I'm trying to solve
No,
problems.
that's fine. I'm following that.
Verbal diarrhea from me. So, right, I'm going to call this the control. Oh, actually, no, we'll call this deform. Or deform, if you please. Right, Shift D, and I'm going to call this control. I can't type. There we go. That's always fun. So
it's hard to follow here. It's actually your screen's reversed on the X. So
I can fix that. I wish I'd known.
I'm hoping it wasn't recording that way.
No, it's recording fine on my side. What it is I'm using OBS virtual camera.
Right.
And
I can follow if it's a.
Is that better?
That's better. Yes. Thank
you. Oh God. I can use Blender, but I can't use Zoom apparently.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to subdivide this. Oh, actually, before I do that, let's hide our plane. We've got our deformer, and we want it to parent. Oh God. Curve deform. Oh God, that's not going to work very well, I'm afraid. It's because I've done the wrong way round. Okay. I'm so confused now. Yeah, no, this is. I think this has gone. Might have gone a little crazy in my thing. So what we could do is maybe we could come back to that idea, but for now, I feel like there must be a simpler way of doing things. So let's try the instancing object and shrink wrap that after the fact onto here. Yeah, we need to do it before the geometry nodes, and that seems to work. Okay, so the curve is snapping to the thing, which does mean that it's kind of limited in what you can sort of do, and it is a bit weird how it's working. But there is some limited form of snapping. I wonder if I could, if my original idea was right to use two curves, one as a deformer and one which would have, a control point, which you'd manipulate, and one which would subdivide over the thing. I think that might be a risky thing to
send
chase.
An array down from the object from an empty, I think it's called in Blender.
Sorry?
And find out where it hit the surface.
Sorry?
We used to send a array down.
Yeah.
Which is similar to what you're doing from the object and detect where it hit on the surface.
We could emulate that by using projection. I mean, there are empties in Blender and stuff, but I'm not sure my head could quite wrap itself around trying to do that
at the moment,
live.
Yeah.
So we can project down just on the Z-axis. And again, with the instancing object, do the same thing. Project to Z-axis. Oh no, maybe. Not sure. I think that would require some tinkering, but we're kind of close to what we wanted. Or maybe I'd just turn off the shrink wrap for this. I wonder why it's displaced. Have I moved it or something? Because we've got some displacement now between the two, haven't we? It used to sit quite nicely on the along the curve. So what's going on? Oh, I'm using the wrong curve. Because I created two curves, I'm just tinkering away with this one. Oops, or am I? I'm so confused. I've managed to tie myself in a mental knot.
It's easily and quickly done.
Yeah. So that is there. So that is following it, and peculiar. I'm not actually sure what I've done now. I've genuinely confused myself so much that I can see that is no longer at its origin point, which is, and it is when I turn it back off, that's okay. And the array works, and then the curve is offset. So yeah, so snap cursor to selected, snap selection to cursor. Try again. Yeah, something wonky's happened there. This is part and parcel of the confusion that goes into playing with curves in Blender. Is you displace one thing, you displace another, and then it's sort of like, well, which bit's actually doing the displacing now? Snap selection to cursor to world origin. Set origin. Selection to cursor. Selection to cursor. Oh, well, the cursor moved. Oh, for God's sake. This is not painting a picture of me as a pro, is it? There we go. And finally got them back to alignment. And we can turn the geometry nodes back on. Yeah, so we're somewhere along that sort of thing. Let's try the shrink wrap one more time. Before geometry nodes, projecting to the plane. On the z-axis. Okay, that's negative. There we go. Okay, so now you have the curve. You can manipulate the curve, and it will snap the geometry to the plane below.
It's working better, isn't it?
But not the curve itself won't be snapping, because I think having that duality of shrink wrap was creating some issues. To be honest, I'm quite impressed with how stable the whole thing is. So yeah. Okay, what else? Any other functionality we wanted to add? I can also, you can change the offset over here, by the way, if you should you require, so we can actually have them sit on the thing. There also might be some normal flipping going on in the array object, but yeah, I'm not going to nitpick too much. What else can we do that would help?
That works. I mean, that was great just for laying out objects with a bit of control over a surface.
Yeah.
You know, if you're doing fence posts, roads, or lamp posts or anything, you can instance those along.
Generally, I would sort of investigate looking into into control structures like an armature or an empty, because it makes animating something like that, well, doable, practical.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So that's a little bit of spline, I'd say magic if it weren't so slapdash, but that's a little bit into what we can do with splines. I think when we were talking about Booleans with them, as far as I'm aware, there's no spline Boolean. Nerd intervention. Yeah, turns out I was wrong. There is actually a way to Boolean curves. I found it almost immediately after hanging up on Andrew, and feel like a bit of a schmuck for missing this one. It turns out the curve tools that we saw in the preferences earlier, turns out that's some pretty big functionality. So if you enable the curve tools, add curve tools, it will add some functionality into our edit tab. So I'm just going to throw in some circles here. And we've got these two circles. We can select them, go to edit, and ignore this. Let's go straight here to intersect, 2D Boolean, 2D curve Boolean. And we're going to hit that, and it throws us into edit mode. But yeah, we can just pull that off now. And we have a Boolean curve, and it couldn't have been simpler. So yeah, turns out you can Boolean curves, and I'm a functional moron. But
if you Booleaned a sphere and a cube together,
yeah,
for instance, and then can you slice it easily through the middle and extract that edge? I guess you just delete everything else, do you?
Let's have a look. Now, there are shortcut keys for Booleans, but I always forget what they are. And we'll just turn this one. I'm just going to change the display option on the object I've Booleaned into a bounding box, so we can still manipulate it,
right?
But not, it's not in the way. So you want like one of these curves from the inside of here?
Well, if those two were a union, let's say, rather than a subtract.
Huh? So those are a union. So now, which part of it do you want?
Let's take a slice right through the middle.
Like going around the outside, yeah?
Yeah, I'm pointing at the screen, but you can't obviously see. So if you took one of the rings through the middle of the sphere,
Oh, yeah. So like
yeah,
this.
and extended it through the cube, is that possible?
So like that.
Yeah.
Okay. So a couple of things we could try here. One is I've got my curve there. I could just draw snapping to surface, hopefully. And if I can't do it this way, I could do it with a grease pencil.
I mean, I'd have generally sliced it or sliced the
Yeah.
whole mesh down.
That's I was just looking at an alternate is that you could draw onto a
All
surface,
round. Yeah.
which might work. But what we can do with this is apply it. I can then, I'm probably going to have to select these 2 points and J. I've used J there to do this sort of supercut maneuver.
What do you do then? Just the two.
Let's undo it. So this is what we've got, the geometry we got from our Boolean. As you can see, it's cut stuff out, but it hasn't added in the necessaries, the necessary verts and edges here. So I've selected the 2 points and hit J, and it's magically sort of cut around there. Doesn't always work because sometimes it misreads the flow of the geometry.
No, that's quite nice then.
But I can select that whole loop. I'm going to hit Shift D, P, and separate the selection. And now we've got this separate piece of geometry. I'm just going to hit M and merge by distance, just in case there's any loose verts there. Just to make sure that's all good. And then I'm going to convert it, and you can watch me cry as it doesn't work. I'm just going to go, I'm going to hit the backslash key to go into local view, just to isolate it from everything else, because there's a lot of noise on our screens. Also, I'm just using like no screen real estate at the moment, so YouTube viewers are probably just spitting fury at me. Convert to curve. And let's go into edit mode, and you can see we've got our curve there. So now we've got a curve from that union. What I will say is it's probably done this as a poly curve. So if we set spline type to Bezier, that will be manipulatable. And we can also go down to here and make sure that we've got cyclic ticked, because we can see actually the join is happening around here. Oh.
Right. I see, and that obviously makes it a closed loop.
Yes, so cyclic is, so if I untick cyclic, you can see we lose a segment here. I don't know why it chose to start and stop there. It's probably something to do with how I generate. What you can do, if you wanted the loop to start somewhere else, you can reorder geometry, but it's a fussy operation where you sort of set up, your 3D cursor. Okay. Quick nerd intervention. What I was trying to do here is display the indices of the verts within the model. What that means is every vert and every face and edge has a numeric designation. So in every model, there's a number assigned to every edge, vert, and face. But to see that number is a little tricky in Blender because it's a developer extra and it's hidden away. Now, the reason this is important is certain modifiers like the build modifier and various other things, this number affects the order in which operations are performed upon the mesh. So I think the best thing I can do is show you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my preferences, and in my preferences under interface, just tick developer extras. This will give you a little experimental tab here. Now, in certain versions of Blender, there may be more things here that you need to tick, but I think that's actually all I needed to do. And what I can do is I'm just going to go into edit mode. And in edit mode, I'm going to go here. And here you'll see this little title, Developer Indices. I'm just going to tick that. And suddenly we've got these little blue numbers next to all the verts. And if I go to the faces, these little blue numbers around all the faces. As I said, this can be useful for a variety of different operations, but what I want to do is I'm going to add a build modifier just because it's a good demonstration. I'm going to set the length to 25 frames, and I'll set this to 25 frames as well, and we'll just hit play. And you can see it builds across like that, and that's fine. Just for demonstrational purposes, let's subdivide this mesh. bit more geometry, but it's when we play it back, even though randomize isn't ticked, the order of the faces, the numbering of it is all over the shop. So we get this really ramshackle build, which is not what I want. I want it to build from this corner all the way down. So I'm going to select, oops, I'm going to select this vert, snap my cursor to it, select all. I'm going to go back to faces. And I'm going to go to mesh. I'm going to go to sort elements. Oh, I did that wrong. Mesh, sort elements, and I'm going to choose cursor distance. And what this will do, it will, well, you'll see. It has basically made the faces closest to the cursor the lowest numbers, and those furthest away have the highest numbers. So if I tab out of this now and play, you'll see it builds from that corner across. Super useful. But it can also be used to troubleshoot certain other operations that we're working on. I don't think it has any more bearing. It doesn't have any further bearing on what we talk about in the rest of this Blenderclinic session, but it's such an important and such a powerful feature that, and such a well-kept secret, I kind of wanted to share it with you today. So yeah, nerd intervention over. Go use it in a blend project a day. This is why they don't let me out on my own. I'm a moron.
That's fine. I've got what is probably a simple question.
Yeah, okay.
If you want to radius those two hard edges on a spline,
If I what, sorry?
bevel them or chamfer them. So the what used to be the cube corner edges.
Yeah.
These, yeah. What's the simplest way to do that?
Okay, well,
there's
this
a
is
bevel weight there. Actually, you've got that up.
yeah, no, you don't. You don't. That's more edge data. So
Right.
with this, because this is still geometry, because obviously I went back a little bit, you can select your verts, hit Control B, and then we're in bevel mode. But that's not going to do a lot right now because we've just got vertices selected. You can see at the bottom of the screen down here,
Yeah.
we're getting some options because we're in bevel mode of what we can do now. And if we just hit V, oh, that's supposed to work. Come on. This is quite tricky to do with a stylus, actually. Bear with me 1 second. So select these, B and V, and now it's doing that. With the mouse wheel, you can then just scroll up to add further sort of, further smoothness to that bevel. So that, and then select it, and then you can actually change these options after you've clicked.
Is that because that's essentially still a mesh?
This is still a mesh,
Right.
because I went back to do it again. If we wanted to do that with the curves,
is that possible with the spline, or is it?
I mean, that's a good question. B is just bringing up box select. I think. Yeah, no, I don't think that would be possible with a spline. Guess what? It's another nerd intervention. That's right. You can bevel or chamfer curve control points. It can be done. And yet again, it comes down to that little curve tool that we added in earlier. So again, you're going to want to make sure you've got your curve tools turned on, select your control points, and then come over here where it says curve edit in your edit tab, fillet and chamfer. And there you go. Bezier point fillet, and then you can just change the radius. Really couldn't be easier, and it's functionality I've totally overlooked being here in Blender. I mean, the reason being that it's overlooked is I never thought to ask, but Andrew knew to ask because he's a smarter man than me. Back to the show. With a spline, I think what we'd have to do is subdivide and then drag these along the normal. God, that's going to be a fussy operation, isn't it? And then change this one to automatic. And yeah, and then you kind of massage it back in. That's a real arseache. That is. That's not. That would not be a pleasant task to do multiple times.
But I mean, yeah, I guess you can swap between that and the mesh quite quickly.
Yeah, I mean, that's the good thing, is that you can take something like this and you can go, my brain does keep stalling, I apologize. Convert to mesh, and now we've got a mesh where I can bevel, and then I can take it back, convert back to curve. And now we've got a curve again. Again,
Yeah,
you're going to have to
yeah.
set your spline type back up. But I mean, you could set those to quick favorites. You could literally, you know, go in and have your convert key and set that to quick favorite and have a whole list of quick favorites and then just tap through them. So yeah, you can achieve. I often say this about Blender. It's I think a lot of other 3D tools are a bit like you have a tool with a purpose, but you know, a shelf putting up tool, and you go in and you go and it puts up a shelf. Blender is just a tool shed with some nails and some hammers, and you can do everything that you can do with that purpose-built tool, but it's going to take you a little while longer. It's not as convenient, although it is getting better, you know, in that regard. So yeah, so those are the, you know, that's how I'd get around those operations. Yeah, so splines, that's probably everything I know about splines. I don't know if it is. I'm sure there's more. I certainly use it a lot in rigging. But yeah, do you have any more questions which I can help with?
We could stick on splines, or I could ask some other basic stuff. Well, I say basic. I don't know if I can share my screen, and I'll
Absolutely.
I'll just show you.
So you're more than happy to stay on splines if you want to, if you'd be happy with that, or we can move on. It's entirely up to you.
I think that's got me somewhere where I need to go.
Okay.
I've got tiny little things like when you create a cube, you can alter the amount of segments, but when you click off it, you can't go back.
Yeah.
Can you go back? No, that's it.
No, it's not
past that point.
Yeah, it's not. We're not doing. It's not Houdini. We're not doing procedural sort of stuff in that regard.
Right.
What you could probably there might be options for that in geometry nodes, but I mean, I don't know. 100%.
I mean, even if you create a cube.
Yeah.
Actually, forget the cube. I was thinking about segments. A sphere, any old sphere.
Yeah.
And now, if you click off, we haven't done anything. You click back on the sphere. Is there any way to get the menu, the tool menu that was up in the bottom left, back on? So you could alter the amount of that's that, is it?
Yeah. Again, this might be something that's coming in geometry nodes, and I would be very surprised if it doesn't. Where instead of creating in the viewport, you'd be creating. I don't know. Let's go with that. And does this have any add geometry stuff? Not that I can see. No. I'd be very surprised if in the next year that you don't have options for flexible geometry like that in the node system.
Yeah, it looks like it's coming.
Definitely, but I'm not aware of any manner in which it currently exists. Yeah. So
right. I mean, one of the things I was quite enjoying about Blender, which we don't really get so much. It is there in Max, was like the weight, the vertex weight,
yeah,
and things like that, and the weight painting. So I'm just kind of playing with it here. Whoops. No.
Sorry, are you supposed to be? Are you sharing a screen with me or something like that? Or
well, I could do. I was just doing it so I could talk. If you see what I mean. I could. Oh, I can't share actually because it's disabled at the moment. But
I apologise.
That's all right.
Multiple participants can try now.
I'll show you. I'll show you what I was doing in geometry nodes on the chat.
Okay. Sorry, did it let you share screen now, or is it not?
Yes, it will. But there's another YouTube video I was doing, and I'll show you where I've got to
Sure.
and where I was struggling. And it's been surprisingly easy to do in Blender, which I thought was nice. There's just a few things where I go, that's what I need to do, but I can't do it.
Okay, so this is the
So this is a
bitmap voxels. Is that the video you
that's
wanted?
the one, yeah. So it takes a bitmap and it voxelizes it. So here you see the image I'm gonna do and it's gonna voxelize it into pixels. So I played with scale, and it's very much, this is my first attempt in Blender with geometry nodes. So I think that was just a noise which scales and moves around, etc.
Sorry, you said your first attempt in Blender with geometry nodes.
Well, this is done in Max. I'm trying to replicate this in Blender.
Right. Okay. Oh God.
So it's actually one node in geometry nodes so far, which isn't too bad.
So you've actually got it working?
To a degree, yes. There's
Okay.
some. I'll share where I'm at. I'll just check I'm sharing. Yep. So if I share that, whoops. Is that coming through?
Yeah, that's coming through just lovely.
So obviously in the bottom left is the image. And if I take you through what I've done, and then I'll just say what's wrong. So the geometry node itself is just, I've got let me turn that off. So I've applied that bitmap to this plane, but in the vertex weight, I've added the saturation. I'm setting the vertex weight using the saturation.
Yes.
Yep. And then obviously that converts it to nodes down here. Sorry, I'm using a attribute mix.
Yeah. So you're populating the mesh vertices with cubes, which are being scaled according to the saturation of the image.
Yes, and I'm using the vertex weight to do that. The issue I'm having is that I'm having to manually set, if I go to here, actually this is my lack of, if I turn that off, so, and actually even if I turn that off, it'll be more evident. I've got two vertex groups. One is called 1, which has a full 1% value, and another set which has 0. And then I'm using a vertex weight mix to blend between the two. That makes so that you using an image and the saturation and the intensity, which is great, which I can then read. I read the attribute A and B in the geometry nodes. And what would be great, oh, get that back, is, and therefore I can scale by set the result to scale. I get a different size cube. What would be great, but that's quite a manual process.
Yeah.
To set that up. Is there any way to set this? How do I phrase it in this? I want to set one of these, a vertex group, using a bitmap once before the geometry modifier. Does that make sense?
I think it makes sense.
Yeah, I thought, my thinking was, if I took that out and I added a mod and did edit and set that, with a bitmap, I thought that would set it,
Yeah.
but it doesn't seem to want to play.
I will say that vertex weight modifiers and stuff are really finicky about the settings. I mean, never seem to be quite what you're hoping for. And then the other thing is the order in which stuff executes, whether or not it's the modifier stack or geometry nodes, I'm not entirely sure of at the moment.
Right.
So yeah, is there not a geometry node which will allow you to bypass the weights entirely and just read from the values of the image?
I don't know how you get that in. So I'll go back to you and then have a look.
Let's have a look. Yeah, let's select all, delete everything, get rid of all that. Snap.
I feel I got quite close to it.
Yeah, I thought that was a really nice solution. Actually, I thought you did a really lovely job. Probably a lot better than I'm going to be. Sorry.
Sorry, the other very simple thing was I was trying to reproject the material onto UV mapping is a bit weird in Blender, but and just applying a planar map I find a bit odd. But we can have a look at.
Yeah, it's going to have to be one thing at a time, I'm afraid, before my brain explodes.
And as well.
Right, so we've got this thing. I need an image is what I'm looking for. So I might as well use my logo. Copy to desktop. Let's...
Did you just drag that into anywhere?
Yeah, I can sort of do that.
Oh, you can do that, can you? Right, yeah. Okay.
Snap selection to cursor. Right. Sorry, this is actually my desktop. So when you initially saw me drag it over, that was not, that was just me.
How did you make the plane? Sorry, go on. Just talk me through how you make a plane so quickly. What did you do?
Okay, I just, this is my desktop over here, not Blender. Yeah. So I'm just dragging this from Explorer into here.
Oh, right. Okay, that's a nice little tip.
And then I'm going to Alt-R to clear rotation. 7 to go overhead. And yeah, so now but the only problem is what we've got here is I've bloody created an empty, this is an empty image, it's not a plane.
Right.
So I wonder if you can convert that actually. I've never tried that. Convert to mesh. Did that work? No, that did not work. Very well. Okay, fine, Blender and your limitations. There is I'm sure there is a way of actually I know there's a way. Preferences. Let's go to image as planes. So it's just the add-on import images as planes, and then we go import images planes. And I'm going to go back to my desktop, grab that image, import images planes. I can hide that one. Where's this gone? Where's it gone? Come on, you. I seem to have, it seems to have evaded me. Let's, sorry, I've clearly cocked something up there. So let's just delete these and try that again. Import images planes, desktop. Just checking my settings aren't saying stupid. Oh, looks okay to me. And yet, for some reason, oh, am I still in? There we go. I was still in local view. So that's it's one of those Blender gotchas. Which,
yes.
Yeah, it gets me all the time. Yeah. So there we go. Just loaded the texture, or I can actually go into this mode and enable textures.
That's quite nice, actually. I had to write a script to do that in Max. So obviously somebody else has.
To do what?
Just to import a plane, create import an image, create a plane, the right size aspect ratio, and then drop an image on it.
Yeah, that's one of the wonderful things about Blender is because it was missing so much when it first was created, and then for many years is like, if you've run into a problem, the chances are someone who is also really good at code has run into the same problem and fixed it. Yeah, the only problem there is, have they updated it? You know?
That's the other thing.
Yeah. So let's subdivide this a bunch of times. Now, unfortunately, I've made rectagonal rather than square subdivisions there, but I'm not going to sweat it for now. Let's see what we can create. This is, I mean, what am I even trying to do this live for? As I said, I have no expertise with geometry nodes. This is going to be panic blending at its worst. I'm just going to scale these little fella down. Okay, so we were using, let's have a look at attribute. Sample texture. There we go. That sounds promising.
Right.
Oh, no, that's not a texture. Right, so I need to set the image up as a texture. So let's create a new texture. We'll call it image text. And
you're in
movie
2.93, aren't you?
Yes, so there might be some nodal differences.
That is a new one, I think.
Oh, see, I'm glad I used the cutting edge one for once. Normally, I regret using the cutting edge one as it crashes and burns around me. But yeah, this seems to have.
There's cutting edge and then there's bleeding edge. So
result UV map. Oh, material index. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to use this. I might have to look it up. Let's go to. What were we doing? Instancing. No, that's not what I wanted.
The point instance I was using.
Yeah. Geometry Kaub. And we're going to scale. Yes.
Oh, it's quick already.
Oh! Sorry. Hey, you know what? This is a perfect opportunity. Apologies. I got a lovely sound bank there, and I never give myself the round of applause I deserve. Right, so that's working almost straight off the bat. Obviously, the finesse is not there, and maybe we could just give this so people can actually see what we're seeing, because I imagine YouTube is compressing those Blender grays to death. So let's scale that up a little bit. In fact, we could actually scale this in the opposite direction so that to compensate for the rectangular nature of things. That was a terrible idea, but that is working. For mapping and stuff, how do we... Do you know what? I think if we go to the texture over here, we can adjust the contrast and stuff and how it's reacting. So bright, yes, there we go. So by manipulating the texture settings, we can change how this is going to interpret stuff. So yeah, that works. Likewise, we could probably limit as to whether it's a black and white image and therefore get some more control over it. But essentially, Bob's your auntie, that is working. What I will say is your solution was really clever, because you could have done that without geometry nodes. So pre-geometry nodes, you probably would have been able to do a very, very similar sort of thing. In fact, I'm sure I've seen people do similar. But yeah, you went about it in a really, really clever way. I'm kind of using the new geometry nodes features as a bit of a crutch here, but I mean, it works, so I'm pleased with myself. Yeah, and obviously
that again, sampling texture makes a difference, because obviously I've got to use the texture to set the weight, because the weight was the only thing that I think that was possibly one of the things that was exposed. But
absolutely, and but the thing is, you can, I mean, like you said, I don't need to set anything up. I can just load a new image in here. So were I to have another image, let's drag something else in. Then it should be very simple to basically I don't need to keep resetting stuff up, is what I'm saying.
I guess you can make a node, turn that into a group and feed in the image.
Absolutely. Oh god, my brain's gone. I was looking for another company logo or something like that I could use, because I don't want to use someone's copyrighted imagery. And I've gone. Do you know when you're looking at a list and you just go blank?
Yeah, it goes blank.
Absolutely that. So, oh, this would be the worst possible image to use because it's really fine detail and stupid. So, oh, there we go. That's what I wanted. So I'm just going to drag that into there. Come on. And then I can delete that, but it's in here. So there we go. Yeah, so that would be the result with the other imagery. Obviously we can scale our cubes back out because that just looks weird otherwise. Yeah.
I don't want to ruin a good thing.
Yeah.
But is there any way to apply? How do you apply? Can you apply color to it now? Are we able to sample that texture again to set the color?
Let's well, I'll tell you what, I'll move back to the other image because it had better color and contrast. I think one of the problems we've got here is that the density's not for much. So let's add a subdivide. Oh, this is going to blow up now, isn't it? I think I've just crashed Blender. There we go. No, it's remarkably, it enjoyed itself. That was all good. We'll change it to a simple subdivision and we'll apply that. So yeah,
you've got a lot of verts there.
Yeah, I to be honest, I kind of want to start again. It's because there was basically the aspect ratio with it. It's a stretched planes. It's not displaying in a very nice way. So maybe I could do this again and take a little more time because right now it looks ugly as sin. How would we project the color back onto it? So we're gonna...
I was trying to put it as a material over the top, but the geometry node seemed to be overwriting the material with the cube that I was instancing within geometry nodes.
Well, I mean, yeah, I think from what you said that made sense to me, but I don't. I mean, that's the behavior I would expect. I'm just going to keep subdividing. And that's a little bit better. Again, we can just project from view with this. I'm going to need the... Oh, I'm going to need to actually check my UVs and whatnot. And sugar lumps, my brain's gone again. Oh, there it is. Logo screen.
You just projected the UVs from view, was it?
Yeah, so project from view.
Oh, right.
And it's squishing that. I could just unwrap. Okay. Oh, I need to give it a material. Yeah, you can tell my brain's gone to toffee because I'm not actually even doing the basics correct at this point. Shader editor. Control T. Oh no, I don't have Node Wrangler enabled because this is I don't have any of my normal stuff set up. So normally I use Node Wrangler. It's got a shortcut Control T, which allows me to just drop an image node setup straight into here, which is a great time saver. But I have not got it set up. So waffle. That's fine. Let's UV project from view again. Scale it up. Okay, so that's a bit more reasonable. Actually, let's scale that down again because more detail. It's not a very detailed image, unfortunately. It's just being a stupid logo. I forgot what I was doing. Of course, geometry nodes. Sample texture. Our image text. And point instance. Oh, point distribute. That could be interesting. Oh, no, I think that's for volumes and such, isn't it?
I think it's a is it random one? No, that's done it.
Okay.
Sorry, I can't see what you typed in on the bottom. That was the...
Scale.
Scale.
Yeah, so just so you can affect the different sort of elements of it.
Yeah.
I would say that, yeah, I think we need to affect the contrast of the image, so we can change that over in here. And maybe that will make it a more reasonable thing. It's because we're getting like such severe differences in the scale that it's not, you know, it doesn't look great. So that is working, but how do we get the color? So we've got a modifier stack here. There's probably a way of doing this directly in here. Color. Don't like the look of that. That looks like it's going to be hard work. Maybe we can projection. My brain.
I guess it's overwriting, because usually you just project the color on as a material now, back over the top, but that doesn't. Blender doesn't seem to like that for some reason.
We'll give it a shot. We'll see if we can get it to work. Snap cursor to selected, selection to cursor, and I'm just going to use this empty as a projector and hope. I don't think this is going to work, actually. I'm doing this. I'm thinking this is actually quite a complex solution, a complex issue, and I'm trying to bodge it in seconds. And come on, select that. So what I need to do now is change the shader. So go to the shader editor.
And it already, yeah.
And I need to change the shader for the cube. Of course.
But that is,
so this is the problem.
You're running into the same issue I've got, in that it uses the UV from the cube, not the overall object. And I guess you could do it if you obviously collapsed the whole thing down.
I think what we want to do there then is give the cube texture, coordinates. There's someone at the moment watching this screaming
do this.
at it going, I know how to do it, and I'm like, bleh. To that person, I apologize profusely for not being smarter.
That didn't connect, actually.
No, it didn't.
Because your angle is off.
The thing is, I also can't tell.
Oh, because it's too... Yeah.
Yeah, there's too much sort of going on. So maybe if I make... make that flat shaded, then that might be a little easier to tell. So currently it's not doing a whole lot of nothing.
So yeah, so that's the plain material, isn't it? It's weird.
Oh damn! I'm on the plain material again, am I? God damn it! Ah, Chris, what are you doing? I'm supposed to be doing the cube material, and the cube materials for all right.
But it's the cube will have different mapping.
Yes, and that's okay.
Is it okay?
Yeah, I'm looking. I don't. I'm an idiot. Right, so we're looking at generated, and there was projection. Oh, object, empty, or object. Oh no, my brain's gone. It's not. It's not there. It's not doing the thing. I was trying to use a UV projection modifier, but I don't know if it can work in this fashion. Because yeah, the UV map is going to be wrong. Empty projection. Okay. Yeah, I'm a bit stuck on that. So I think the solution is going to have to be in the geometry nodes.
Okay.
So maybe we create another one of these and we go color. Is there a attribute called color? I don't know.
Is there a vert color?
Diffuse color. Yeah, if you could search for vert color or color attributes, then that would be...
vertex color, no. Oh, is that? I don't know if that's in the material or the
Aha.
geometry node.
So I changed the position of so that the order of the nodes, and that has immediately affected something, which is great, but it's not necessarily the right thing. So diffuse color. No. Let's have a quick Google.
I'm looking at shader nodes.
Color attributes. The thing is there's something right on the edge of my brain just screaming, going, this! And I can't quite access it. It's like, I know how to do this, and yet I don't.
I mean, yeah, it's going to be sampling the bitmap, and I mean, you either do it with UV or you do it with something like vert color, isn't it? But
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, the thing is obviously we also know the geometry nodes is only semi-implemented at the moment.
yeah,
So
yeah.
a lot of really, really crucial features may or may not be in there. And we could just be banging our head against the wall here. Point, translate, separate, utilities, vector.
There are a list of attributes anyway.
No, I don't believe there are. There should be. And I know that they're looking at implementing like a Houdini style spreadsheet sort of view
Right.
for Blender. I know that's coming. I know it's not in it yet, though. But I can't wait for that because it's one of those things where you can go around and you can click on stuff and copy data paths.
Right.
And that's super useful, but I don't know that it's gonna, save our bacon. Oh, haha! I was in the wrong view mode, so in none of it. Woo! It's not right, but it's close. So I'm going to need to. Jesus Christ! All of that waffle. It just goes. This is typical Blender, though. This is typical Blender and problem solving. It's like all of that waffle, and I mean, yeah, it's like just you didn't say go.
Push the button.
So we've got a UV map, we've got that scaling. So what I think I might have to do is create a second texture, image text 01. So we've got this one, and then we've got a separate one, just so I can play with the mapping without breaking what was already existing.
Where's that mapping coming from?
I don't know. Do you know what? It might be from one of my many other things. Like, is it the UV projection? Is it the UV projection on the cube? I don't know. I don't know what I've actually done. Let's disconnect this.
I think you can mute those somehow as well.
I've done it now, and I can't actually undo it. There's the right. Let's take that back to there.
Oh, right. No.
It might just be purely in the shader, but I'm doing this. Is it in the shader? Yes, it's purely the shader there. So what we could do is change. Let's turn off repeat, extend, or clip. Why is that happening? Is that happening because of something else?
If you move the empty, does that?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, it's this. So, do I actually, if I've, oh, do you know what? That's because I was setting the thing from the object. Right. Okay. So this is because I'm using an object texture coordinate. It's not projection modifier or anything like that. I don't need that. I'm purely using that. So if I change it to a plane, will it work? Not so much. Yeah. So interesting. So what we can do with that is we can just, this is hacky, but we can take this and reposition it. Oh, should be able to. Oh, do you know what? Maybe it was involving the UV projection.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, no, I've just set that wrong. Is all it is. I think I'm losing my mind. I say that too often, don't I?
Things I do find weird about Blender, or it's interesting, is that most of the modifiers in Max come with their own center point and gizmo, whereas in Blender you kind of make an external empty,
right,
to run the modifier.
I see. Yeah, no, I see what you mean. I mean, that many peculiarities about Blender. I mean, it's got its own 3D cursor pivot point thing, which just totally is a fairly unique thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it took me a year to realise what the hell that thing did.
Yeah, I think it scares off a lot of people, actually. Scale X 2.
Okay.
Scale Y 2.
So that's lining up.
No, it's yeah. The thing is it's not lining up properly because I've cropped the dimensions of my UVs are cropped.
Right.
So if I select this, you can see my UVs are cropped. So if I were to go project from bounds, then now we should have matching stuff. But obviously, see, scale X2, scale Y2, and now we've got that matching up and it works. But that's really hacky and I don't like it.
I don't mind it.
If you wanted to then like manipulate this further, you'd have to sort of create another empty and parent both of these to the empty and then scale that, and now it'll allow you to manipulate it without, you know. But that's it's not perfect, but I've got a feeling that there is a smarter way of doing this, and we just sort of shambled around in the dark and found something that worked. But we found something that worked live. So I mean,
yeah, we're there.
I'll stake my reputation on it. I don't want to stake my reputation on it. Okay. Well, I mean, we've covered quite a lot. Is there any a small one before we go, or did you have more questions about this?
I've got a small one.
Well, that's a very personal thing to say on YouTube.
That's the problem.
If it makes you feel any better.
I thought it was a different clinic.
Sorry?
I thought it was a different clinic.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
If life gives you lemons, make lemonades. Unfortunately, life had given me crabs, so I made some crab cakes that night. Oh God, that's a really old joke, and I told it wrong.
Okay.
So sorry.
That's what editing's for.
Oh God, it is.
I've got one small one I could ask.
Yeah.
If you go to, and you can edit this out later, but if you go to, where is it? Tool, Workspace.
Right.
In your main view, sorry, the right-hand menu.
Yep.
Tool, Workspace, filter. What does that do?
Okay, so this exists here as well.
Right. Okay.
And I think this is, I couldn't swear to it, but
This is for
turning stuff on and off.
Imported add-ons that you turned on or off, but I can't really find a purpose.
So, yeah, I'm not entirely sure about that. I've got to admit, I think it would allow, if I turn on like one of the ones which is here, like F2. Are you aware of the add-on F2?
Not necessarily, no. So what, you hit F2 and...
So
No.
F2's turned on here, but it's not turned on there. So that's interesting. I don't know why that... If I turn this on here, is it going to...
Oh, hang on, I've maximised it.
Honestly, I don't know. I'm not sure about that. What I can say is, yeah, if you're not aware of F2, F2 is for bomb. So F2 is used with geometry. X, delete faces. So say we've got a couple of holes in our faces. We've got an edge selected. I put my mouse cursor where I want to fill towards, hit F, and it fills it.
Oh, hang on
Smart.
then.
So it's smart filling. So yeah.
So if I create a cube, go into something like object mode, no, I won't. It's not playing this end. 1, 2, 3, oh, two. Oh, yeah, I won't go into it.
What's that?
It's all right. I was just I was going to try at this end, but my cube is still linked to my geometry node.
Well, F2 it's a good add-on to play around with, and there is documentation for it on the web. So if you're not using it, I recommend it fully. Yeah, I genuinely, I'm not sure about the workspace filtering options. To be honest, they only added in this workspace section in recent versions, since 2.8, and mostly it seems to duplicate tools which normally sit along the top edge of the viewport. And I'm so used to using them up here. I don't tend to. It doesn't get a look in. So,
Yeah.
But that is something I'll look up. Thank you for pointing out, saying a hole in my knowledge.
Yeah.
There are many, but this one is mine. Yeah, great. Okay, well, I think we've covered enough for.
Yes. Yeah, that was fun.
If you wanted to come on again and have a chat with this further stuff, then I'd love to. This has been great. I appreciate your patience. So yeah, it's been really nice having you on the show. If I actually cut this one to be a show, I don't know. I feel like it's a very long episode, isn't it? Maybe we'll cut it into chunks.
What we done, yeah, hour and a half. Yes.
Yeah.
No, I'm sure with a bit of editing that will come together well. No, I'd love to come on again. That was good fun.
Fantastic.
Learned a lot.
Well, I'm really pleased I could help, and I really appreciate you being brave enough to come on, being the very first to come on Blenderclinic. And yeah, as I said, maybe we'll cut this into chunks and serve it up. But
I think we got there in the end, though.
Definitely.
I'm pleased with that.
I think sometimes it's interesting to see the problem solving process as people go, because I think a lot of the time you'll see people on YouTube. They'll go, today I'm going to do a tutorial. Hey guys, today I'm going to do a tutorial on blah, 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 blah. And it's like they've rehearsed that 10 times and it's crashed every other time. And it's the version you see is when it goes right. And for the most professional of professionals, that's just not the case. Stuff breaks all the time and is really hard going and it's back and forth and it's an iterative process. And, I think that sometimes gives a false impression to people who are just starting in CG that they're supposed to just be able to just pull this stuff out their backside and then it works.
No, I mean, as well, there'll always be 3 or 4 things going on in your head going, I could do it this way, I could do it this way, or I could do it this way. Which way is it going to work?
Yeah.
You've got to try one of them and see if it does work. And the other 3 probably wouldn't have worked anyway, but
Definitely, yeah. Well, I mean, this has been great, and yeah, it's been, as I said, I just really appreciate your patience with it and for coming on. And as I said, stay in touch. Just stay in touch for funsies on Twitter if you like. But also, if you've got more questions, let's do this again. And what we're hoping to do is also get some guest pros on the show. People who are more knowledgeable than me in a specific area. And hopefully it'll be quite interesting.
Cool. Look forward to the rigging episode.
Rigging episode. Well, that's my forte, baby.
Questions.
Rigging's all I do, man. Rigging is my forte.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. So Cool. Well, I'm not going to ask you what your rigging questions are. When you have to think about those, write them down, pop them in a little hat, and keep them to yourself.
I'll kick them out the door.
Yeah, no. Well, write them down. Maybe we'll do another session.
No, that'd be brilliant.
Fantastic. You take care of yourself.
You too. Good to meet you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.